Hello, hello. Good to see you. It's been a few days since I've been on. We actually are in Texas and we lost power for a few days. And I will tell you that losing power in Texas when it is 90 something degrees outside is rough. That was not exactly a fun time. So I wanted to jump on and just see if there were any questions anybody had about healing from toxic relationships. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephanie McPhail. I specialize in toxic relationship recovery. So if you are currently in a toxic relationship or you have been in one and you are looking to heal, this is definitely the place that you should be in, following this account and getting access to the resources that we have. So what I try to do at least once a week is come on live and answer any questions that anybody has about healing from toxic relationships. Doesn't matter how long you've been in one, no matter what you've experienced, it is possible to heal and create something different. I actually just spoke to someone today who was telling me that she was in a toxic relationship and it started out with her upbringing. And I don't know if this resonates for anyone who is watching right now, but her mother was the toxic one. She was unhealthy and her dad was the enabler. And so we see that a lot. We see where either one of the parents is the enabler sometimes, both of them are toxic. Sometimes we even see where the family is just wonderful and the kids actually get no coping mechanisms so that when they go out into the real world, they don't see the red flags that they should. Excuse me, they are so trusting. So it's really important for people to start learning those real tools that we need to have in order to heal. So if this is your first time watching one of these, definitely like and follow this page. Give me some comments, any questions that you have, and let me see. I see some smiles. Let's see what kind of people there are. Siri for a snack and brought me here. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Hopefully the snack is learning how to heal from toxic relationships. That's something that's important. It's really interesting that the more pin, your viewers may notice it. Okay, cool. Let's try it. Go to pin. What's pin? I don't know. I've never done that before. I've never been asked. Cool. All right. All right. Any questions for me about healing from toxic relationships? So one of the things I'll just kind of get started. And again, if there's any questions, just feel free to ask. But one of the things that we see is people always talk about toxic relationships as like the cycle of abuse. And I actually talk about that in my book, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. If you can see actually my workbook. Oh, and actually I just got a new, oh my gosh, that's what I should talk about. Definitely going to talk about the different how to heal from toxic relationships. I want to show you my book. Hold on. Oh. Where did my new workbook go? Oh. Hold on, I'm coming back, I promise. Okay, I'm back, I promise. Okay, so this is my new workbook. And so actually in my workbook, I know it's backwards for you guys, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, 6 Steps to Recognize and Overcome Toxic Relationships. You can swipe right and you can grab this. You can actually get a free plus shipping and handling, or like 90% off plus shipping and handling of this book. And I will sign it as well. I have my regular book, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, all about healing from toxic relationships. And the workbook is definitely a great addition to help you really go through the steps of healing. But in the book, it actually talks about the cycle, the power wheel. I talk about the cycle of abuse. So this one is the power and control that's in there about learning how to recognize those toxic relationships. And then of course, this is how you identify, because one of the biggest things when you've been in a toxic relationship is not being able to identify that you're in one. Here is the cycle of abuse. And so the cycle of abuse, there's the tension building, the acute explosion, the honeymoon, and denial. We stay in that relationship way longer because we're thinking that it's not really as bad as we think it is. And so we get sucked into that relationship. And now one of the things that I share a lot with clients is that all that information is important. But the big thing that I see is that first we really need to recognize that there is a problem to begin with. We need to see that there is, or we get into this relationship and we're like, something isn't right. I don't know what it is, but we can tell that something's not right. And a lot of times is a lot of times we blame ourselves for everything. We think if I can just change, if I can just fix it, if I can figure out what the problem is, then I can make the relationship work. And so after we recognize there's a problem, what most of us do, and tell me if you agree with this or what your experience was, but then we start researching. We go to TikTok, we watch videos, we get books, we do all the different things, and we start researching and become experts on narcissism. Right now, one of the most highly searched words is the word narcissist and narcissism. So obviously, it's something that people are researching a lot and finding a lot of information about. And the thing that I say, it's good to know and be aware what narcissism is. It's good to know what borderline personality is, what sociopaths are, what psychopaths are. All those things are really good to know, but it doesn't necessarily help you to heal. So when you're looking at healing, recognizing there's a problem and researching is a great starting point, but the more we focus on what's wrong with the other person, we take away our ability to make a choice of creating something different for ourselves. And so, the next phase that happens to a lot of people is they become addicted to the research mode. So now they're like, if I can just teach my partner how to treat me better, if I can show them, if I can prove to them that I'm worthy, then maybe they won't treat me so badly anymore. Now, someone who is physically abusive towards you, pretty good chance they are a narcissist. People just don't go around being abusive towards other people. Sometimes people need to learn how to communicate better. Sometimes people just don't work well together. It doesn't necessarily make them a narcissist, but the point is that you should feel happy, safe, supported, inspired, motivated, all those good things, like you're in a relationship with your best friend. When you are in a relationship, you shouldn't need research, and you shouldn't be addicted to trying to prove to the other person that you are worthy of them treating you well. If you've gotten yourself into that cycle, definitely make sure you jump in there and start watching these videos, because you need help to get out of your own head. We get into that addictive phase. The other person might be addicted to drugs, alcohol, bad behaviors of other kinds, whatever, but we become addicted to the toxic person. It becomes really hard to withdraw from them, to leave it, because we feel like we're leaving them, we feel like we're abandoning them. We have all these negative feelings of low self-worth, and all those things make it really hard for us to leave. So after that addiction phase, then for a lot of us, we'll go into the acceptance phase and realize, oh my gosh, this person really is toxic, or this relationship really is toxic, and I should not stay in it. I should not force myself to stay in a relationship that is not healthy for me. And so there's that acceptance phase. And then after that is really the accountability phase. And the accountability phase, I think, is really important, is because we need to partially be accountable for ourselves. And most of us also need help being accountable as well. I say that because I had a degree in psychology. I was a certified crisis counselor, and I was also in toxic relationships. I had an abusive first husband. Relationships, in between were all unhealthy. And I thought that I could just figure it out on my own. But the problem is you can't see the label from inside the bottle. So if your brain got you to this place, it's pretty hard for our brain to get ourselves out. So we need to be able to have someone help us course correct and point out the areas where we're repeating patterns or making the same mistakes, which is really what we do when we work with clients, is make sure they help those subconscious beliefs about what's possible it is for them to heal, and then also point out the areas where they're making mistakes and help them follow through. Because I don't know if anyone who's listening or watching right now, but a lot of us told ourselves that we were going to end that toxic relationship. We weren't going to allow them to treat us badly anymore, and we stayed. And we kept trying to make it work, and we kept trying to force the relationship. So really, really important for you to go and get that accountability and get that support. So are there questions for me? This is definitely an opportunity for you to ask questions. Again, if you have not gone over and followed this page, make sure that you go over and follow. Lots of resources. Again, swipe right. There's a whole bunch of different resources where you can grab a copy of my book and workbook, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt. It's really all about healing from toxic relationships. In my book, Being Loved Shouldn't Hurt, I actually share my story of overcoming toxic relationships and how I was stuck in the cycle. But more importantly, it also shares other people's stories of healing from toxic relationships and how their lives changed. So definitely grab this. And then again, the workbook is to really help you start taking those steps, because one of the things that I've noticed is that after we are in that toxic relationship, we feel really lost. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we want. and we feel worried that maybe we're never going to find a healthy relationship, that things are never going to be as good as we were hoping they would be. And so we give up, we settle, all those negative things that just keep us stuck meeting these unhealthy people again and again and again. So definitely grab a copy of this, and you'll be able to start taking action yourself on really healing. And so the steps, and this is actually really cool because there's some guided journals in here. There's some different things for you to work on, but it's really all about holistic healing. You want to make sure that when you're healing from a toxic relationship, you are healing holistically. We're not just talking about the mental health part of healing from toxic relationships. We're also looking at making sure that we create a new life for ourselves, create healthy boundaries, learn how to communicate, really start trusting ourselves, because we've lied to ourselves for so long about the relationship. So we need to learn how to trust ourselves again, learn how we got to this point. I mean, that's a really big part of healing, is learning, how did I get into this toxic relationship to begin with? And again, we will repeat patterns until we learn to do something different. I had a client of mine who she really only chose toxic people. Professional, she's a doctor, very, very smart woman. She always chose toxic people. And when she came to us, she actually was going through a divorce from someone who had become physically abusive and was actually abusive towards his children. And they had a child together. And so she was really trying to protect their child together, and then also the other children that he had, all the while trying to figure out, how did I get into this mess? I don't want to get into another toxic relationship. There's a lot of healing that needs to come down to this. And so she started doing the work, started realizing where her patterns were, and started making different choices, and actually met this really great guy after some time doing her own work, because we don't recommend jumping into another relationship. That's another issue that a lot of us do or have, is that we jump right into another relationship after the first relationship, and we don't take that time to heal and to really reconnect to ourselves. So we really have to make sure that we're taking that time in between relationships before we start jumping into another one. So she took the time, she healed, she worked on herself, she met an amazing guy who treated her really, really well. And I'll say, before, she didn't even feel like she deserved a healthy guy, so she'd kind of tell the good guys to go, and the ones who were bad were the ones that happened to stick around. And so she ended up, the good guy finally gave him a chance, fell in love, and now they are happily married. And she was someone in her 40s that had never really experienced anything healthy. And here she is in the best relationship of her life, super happy, supportive partner. And it took her changing her perception on what was possible for a relationship. So if we believe that relationships are hard, that all the good ones are taken, that there's no good people out there, or that we feel like we're too flawed, we're too messed up, or whatever it is, where we don't feel like it's possible for us to create something different, then there's a pretty good chance we're going to keep recreating those patterns and keep finding those types of people. When we change what we feel like we deserve, and we realize that we deserve those healthy people, then we have the opportunity to open up the chance of actually finding someone, meeting them, and then giving them the opportunity to show who they are. And because our life has already been so good and we're so happy in where we are in our own lives, we're not looking for somebody else to come and sweep us off our feet and take care of us and be the knight in shining armor. We're looking for someone that's going to add to our lives. It's going to make our life better, not take away from our life. Because a lot of us who've been in a bad relationship, a toxic relationship, relationships always took away from our lives. We want someone who adds to our life instead of takes away. All right, I see a bunch of people on turning 50 and getting out of 28-year toxic marriage. Well, congratulations. I am sorry that you had experienced that with a toxic relationship. I will say that most of our clients are 50. We have between 35 and 55 is our numbers, but I would say even 49 to 55 is the chunk of who we work with. And I will tell you that there's a beautiful thing when we look at actually healing and really getting comfortable in our own skin. 28 years of marriage means that you stuck around because possibly you were like me, where maybe you believed that once you got married, you'd stay married. Maybe you didn't see some of the warning signs. Maybe you tried to put on a mask. You tried to protect your family from him or from your partner. There's a lot of different reasons why we stay. But I give you huge kudos on being able to get out and really starting your new life. And I'll tell you, 50 is actually a beautiful time to get started because you still have the whole rest of your life. I'm so glad that you got out now. You didn't wait another 10, 20, 30 years, because I've had clients in their 80s. So you have so much more life yet to really find an amazing partner. But first off, and more importantly, to heal so that you can really create something different for this next chapter of your life. Was praying for him to grow up. Yeah, well, that's what it is. We see the potential, right? I saw potential in my exes. There was the possibility. And then also, too, we believe they're going to turn back into who they were when we first got together with them. And they don't. That's because that person wasn't real most of the time. They just were putting on a front to get what they wanted. You know, this is really interesting, too, is that people that are narcissistic, or even if they don't are not completely narcissistic, maybe they have some of the patterns, some of the characteristics. What we see is they really love being around strong, successful, professional, loyal women or men. You know, obviously narcissists are men and women. But they love the arm candy. They love people that make them look good. And what's interesting about that is that even though that's who they're attracted to, then they feel really bad. Their ego is like shut down because they have this amazing, wonderful person that's super loyal and super caring and smart and all these really great positive things. They, instead of saying, I'm going to level up to be more like them and to do my best for myself and to make the relationship better and everything else, it's easier for them to try to tear us down, to make us feel bad because of their poor ego. And so, like, so ridiculous, like if they just did better, they could, you know, they'd be doing great things. But instead of trying to up-level themselves, it's easier for them to tear us apart and make us feel bad because of their own insecurities, which is really why they do all those things. All right, any other questions? Any other questions? All right, let's see. I see, let me see. I've never invited anyone as a guest. Let's see if there's any. If anybody wants to join. Oh, thank you for the gift. I see a gift that came in. I appreciate it. Open to questions about healing from toxic relationships. Anything and everything. I've been doing this now. Passionate about it. I actually also have a podcast. If you have not followed my podcast, if you go over to toxiclovepodcast.com, if you go over, you'll be able to have a listen. We've got a whole bunch of videos up there. Hey, I hear someone.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you? Let me just turn up the volume. See if I can...
Have been a lot better. Going through a lot.
Tell me what's going on.
It's a long process. Have two kids with him that are 12 and 16. He became an addict to, I don't know how to say it, but pills.
Okay, yeah.
Just over the past 3 to 5 years, just became really mean, hateful about everything, short-tempered, everything was my fault, would lie about everything. I bent over backwards to try to make him happy. It wasn't happening.
And so now, were you the one? I can't see your faces. I've never invited anyone on the live, so this is my first time. So I apologize if I'm doing something wrong. But
No, you're doing fine.
Okay, good. I'm like, I can't really see you well. Now, you were the one who just ended the 28-year marriage?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So 20 years, and when did they become addicted?
He has been for about 20 years. He fell off of a roof and crushed his feet and got on the pills, and then it just, like the last 3 to 5 years, it just got like worse, where the doctors wasn't enough. It had to be more and more and more.
And so now what happens with a lot of that is that, especially when in the beginning they were not addicted to their drug of choice, we really hold on to that beginning part and say, you know, we're married through sickness and in health. They're going to go back to being the person they were if I just hold on long enough. And we keep holding on, hoping that they're going to go back to being that other person, but they don't. Was that your experience?
Oh, yeah, no, definitely not. Got worse.
Yeah.
And it hurts. It's like, why was I not good enough? Why did you have to turn to something other than me?
Mm-hmm. And did you ever question like why you couldn't help? Why you can help.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. You know, I would do anything to help him, and I agreed to do anything to help him. And he actually went and checked himself into rehab last week. So I think he did it because his mom wanted to, so I don't think it was for the right reasons. So I'm not real sure that he's going to be successful with it.
Well, the problem also with rehab, just in general, is that a lot of the times I actually do a lot of work with people who are in relationships with someone who's an addict, and I will tell you that it is such a bumpy road because even when they really want to do the work, that addiction to their substance of choice has helped them to cope. So now they're learning new coping mechanisms. A lot of them had other mental health issues that they were never dealt with. So now they're dealing with that as well. So even in a perfect scenario where they're trying really hard, they want to heal, they very often it's a bumpy road of them falling off the wagon and coming back many times before there's even a shift. And right now it sounds like he's doing it for mom, not for himself. So he's still not taking responsibility for it.
No, nothing was his fault. It was always mine or always the girls's or and for the last 2 years, it would be like he would leave for a month and a half and then, find some way to weasel his way back in. And, when the girls would question him, where have you been? What have you been doing? It would turn into, I'm grown. It's none of your business. Why are you questioning me? I don't have to answer to you. And it's just, his 12-year-old daughter told him, it hurts me when you leave. 2 times ago, she was like, if you leave, I don't ever want to see you again. If you leave again. And he did it again. And then she accepted him back. And as soon as I got the kids to start accepting him back, boom, he would do it again. And so my 16-year-old daughter, she said, Mom, I've lost all respect for you because you don't respect yourself.
Yeah, and I hate to say that's a common thing, is that even though we're trying to protect the other person, the kids a lot of times will actually be angry at the parent who stays.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm kind of afraid of that. But they're both at the point where, neither one of them want to see him. Neither one of them want to talk to him. My daughter told him, I'm not even going to tell you Happy Father's Day because you haven't been being a father. And supposedly the reason the kids feel the way they do is because I've said stuff, but I don't. I really don't. I try to protect him, and that's what I told him. I tell the girls, your dad's going through a hard time. Let's give him a chance. He needs us to help him, and then it would just backfire on me.
Well, and then they trust you because you're the parent of that seems, the one who's more consistent, who they can trust and depend on. So they say to themselves, well, if mom says that we should be supporting dad, let's do what we're supposed to do. And then because he's an addict, he doesn't give a crap about anybody else but himself.
Exactly. Nobody at all. And then he say, oh, the girls are my world. The girls mean the world to me. Okay, well, if they meant the world to you, why would you continue to do this?
And that's tough to really feel. But I will say that the drug will take precedence over anything and everything. It doesn't matter who you are until he decides to make that shift for himself. Because right now, when people say he's disappointed or he messes up again, he can turn around and be like, okay, well, look at that. I'm just a mess up. It gives him another reason to continue using. It's
Right.
all excuses. Like, oh, look, I screwed up again. My girls hate me. Oh, look, I screwed up again. My wife hates me. Oh, look, I screwed up again. Might as well go back to my drug because I'm a loser anyway that doesn't follow through and isn't successful. So they go right back. It's all excuses to stay addicted, but it's that cycle. And that's actually what we get sucked into, of that addiction phase of like, maybe if I explain it to them this way, maybe if I say, hey, you're hurting your children. Hey, you're hurting me. Hey, I feel like you're abandoning us. All of those things that we say, we become addicted to them just like they're addicted to that substance.
I do feel like that. It's a pain that I can't describe.
I get it.
My insides feel like they just shake all the time. I don't,
Well,
it's just so hard to explain.
No, and I get it. And that's one of the things, I think when I was in my abusive first marriage, I didn't feel like anybody else understood. And I was also really embarrassed to tell anybody because I was the one who had it together. I was the one who knew, I was the go-to for everybody when they needed anything. And to be the one to have to admit, like, I'm actually going home to someone. I don't know if I'm going to get the silent treatment. I don't know if I'm going to get chairs thrown at me. Like, I don't know what I'm getting. So I
Exactly.
didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to know and I didn't feel like anybody understood.
And see, we worked together all day too. And so, at work, it was like, it just made the day miserable. He would talk to himself and tell himself how horrible life was and how he had such ungrateful kids and an ungrateful wife. And we needed to learn how to be grateful to him. And, I don't, I don't know. It just hurts.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, I can say this 100%. I don't care if it's you work with me or who it is, but definitely find your people to help you. That's part of your support system. It's actually one of the things I have in my workbook is really creating your team. So, we normally recommend, and I always come from a holistic perspective. So, we want to make sure that in healing, we have our therapist, our coach, our person that we can go on adventures with, our people that are there to support us. Because for too long, we get so focused on that toxic person that we lose ourselves in the process. We don't know who we are anymore, and we just feel lost because we've given until we were completely empty.
Oh, yeah, I have free time, and it's like, oh, I need to scrub the floor. Well, you just scrubbed the floor last night. Really? Why are you scrubbing the floor again? And my kids, it's almost like I feel like I can't even focus on them because my brain is thinking, how is he just out there getting to live his best life while I'm here stuck with all this? And I don't mean it bad by saying stuck with my kids because I'm not,
I get it. I get it.
but that's the way it feels. And it 15-year-old daughter, she said, Mom, I've lost all respect for you because you don't respect yourself.
Yeah, and I hate to say that's a common thing, is that even though we're trying to protect the other person, the kids a lot of times will actually be angry at the parent who stays.
Really.
Yeah.
I'm kind of afraid of that. But they're both at the point where, neither one of them want to see him, neither one of them want to talk to him. My daughter told him, I'm not even going to tell you Happy Father's Day because you haven't been being a father. And supposedly the reason the kids feel the way they do is because I've said stuff, but I don't. I really don't. I try to protect him, and that's what I told him. I tell the girls, your dad's going through a hard time. Let's give him a chance. He needs us to help him, and then it would just backfire on me.
Well, and then they trust you because that, you're the parent of that seems, the one who's more consistent, who they can trust and depend on. So they say to themselves, well, if mom says that we should be supporting dad, let's do what we're supposed to do. And then because he's an addict, he doesn't give a crap about anybody else but himself.
Exactly. Nobody at all. And then he say, oh, the girls are my world. The girls mean the world to me. Okay, well, if they meant the world to you, why would you continue to do this?
And that's tough to really feel. But I will say that the drug will take precedence over anything and everything. It doesn't matter who you are until he decides to make that shift for himself. Because right now, when people say he's disappointed or he messes up again, he can turn around and be like, okay, well, look at that. I'm just a mess up. It gives him another reason to continue using. It's all excuses. Like, oh, look, I screwed up again. My girls hate me. Oh, look, I screwed up again. My wife hates me. Oh, look, I screwed up again. Might as well go back to my drug because I'm a loser anyway that doesn't follow through and isn't successful. So they go right back. It's all excuses to stay addicted, but it's that cycle. And that's actually what we get sucked into, of that addiction phase of like, maybe if I explain it to them this way, maybe if I say, hey, you're hurting your children. Hey, you're hurting me. Hey, I feel like you're abandoning us. All of those things that we say, we become addicted to them just like they're addicted to that substance.
I do feel like that. It's a pain that I can't describe.
I get it.
My insides feel like they just shake all the time. It's just so hard to explain.
No, and I get it. And that's one of the things, I think when I was in my abusive first marriage, I didn't feel like anybody else understood. And I was also really embarrassed to tell anybody because I was the one who had it together. I was the one who knew, I was the go-to for everybody when they needed anything. And to be the one to have to admit, like, I'm actually going home to someone. I don't know if I'm going to get the silent treatment. I don't know if I'm going to get chairs thrown at me. Like, I don't know what I'm getting.
Exactly.
So I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to know, and I didn't feel like anybody understood.
And see, we worked together all day too. And so, at work, it was like, it just made the day miserable. He would talk to himself and tell himself how horrible life was and how he had such ungrateful kids and an ungrateful wife. And we needed to learn how to be grateful to him. And, I don't know. It just hurts.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, I can say this 100%. I don't care if it's you work with me or who it is, but definitely find your people to help you. That's part of your support system. It's actually one of the things I have in my workbook is really creating your team. So we normally recommend, and I always come from a holistic perspective. So we want to make sure that in healing, we have our therapist, our coach, our person that we can go on adventures with, our people that are there to support us. Because for too long, we get so focused on that toxic person that we lose ourselves in the process. We don't know who we are anymore, and we just feel lost because we've given until we were completely empty.
Oh yeah, I have free time, and it's like, oh, I need to scrub the floor. Well, you just scrubbed the floor last night. Really? Why are you scrubbing the floor again? And my kids, it's almost like I feel like I can't even focus on them because my brain is thinking, how is he just out there getting to live his best life? Well, I'm here stuck with all this, and I don't mean it bad by saying stuck with my kids because I'm not,
I get it.
that's the way it feels. And it feels like the hurt's just not going to stop. And so many times through the day, I just want to call him and tell him, why are you doing this? And then he told me, nothing you say to me matters anymore. I don't care what you think of me. I hate you. I hate everything about you. You breathe down my neck all the time. I want you out of my business. The phone started being locked constantly. The computer was locked all the time. It was just like he was living different lives.
And then for you, so what happens after these types of relationships also is that we go into avoidance, which probably was in compartmentalization. So, we compartmentalize so we're able to function at work, and then we feel the feelings later. But what happens with a lot of this too is you've been avoiding putting off these feelings for so long that as the relationship continues to come apart and the divorce becomes finalized and all those things happen, we start feeling all of the feelings that we've been putting off for years and years and years. And that's when it starts to feel like our world is like caving in on us. So cleaning the floor extra. I have a lot of clients, they take extra hours at work. They get another degree. They do all these other things to avoid feeling the feelings. But I'll tell you that until we feel those feelings, we're going to keep repeating those types of patterns. So even though we don't want to feel all that crap, we still have to feel it in order to heal it.
That makes sense. I'm at the numb stage right now. It's like, for days I just cried and I just wanted to stay in bed. I wanted my room closed. I didn't want my kids to come in there. I just didn't want to be talked to. I wanted to be left alone. I just kind of wanted to be in my own pity, I guess. And then it went to, oh my gosh, what am I going to do without him? I'm going to grow old, miserable, and alone. And then it was like, well, I'm alone with him here. So my brain just keeps playing games with me.
You cannot trust your brain right now because it's trying to have you avoid pain. So what happens with that is that even though the pain of feeling all of your feelings will actually make you feel better in the long run, the pain that you're having is like going through the withdrawals of the drug. So it's like for him, if he's addicted to his choice of pills or whatever, then his brain is telling him everything he can of why he should continue. So well, my wife hates me and my kids hate me and whatever, so I might as well just keep going. For us, our brain is saying, hey, it really hurts for me to stay away. So maybe I should reach out. Maybe I should try to make things better. Maybe I should try to fix things. It's doing all these things to try to avoid pain, which really just prolongs it. So, your brain can't really be trusted after this. It's doing everything it can to get you back to that actual painful place, even though it's trying to protect you from the pain. Your brain doesn't understand long-term healing versus short-term, let's feel better in this moment.
Right. And then, you were saying don't jump into another relationship. And in my mind, it's like, I need to fill his spot to get over him. Does that make sense?
Yep. And that's avoiding.
Okay.
And that's why we don't recommend it, because if we avoid feeling the feelings, so one of the things when you've been in a relationship for so long, and I get it, part of us just wants to feel like we're attractive. Do I still have it? How do I date? I haven't dated in 28 years. Who am I? What do I want? But the problem is that if we don't take that time in between, then we're just going to cover up the wounds. And if you know anything about wound healing, but if you cover up an infection, the infection gets worse.
Right.
So you have to allow the infection to open up. You have to be able to clean it out, get to the roots, and then it heals. But it hurts to do it. You have to clean it out. It hurts for a little while until it gets better. So because you spent so much time focusing on the relationship, on proving your worth, on trying to make it work, on trying to fix everything for the family, all of those things, you've lost yourself. Now is the time to focus on you, who you are, what you want for yourself, what your likes are, what your dislikes are. Create a team. One of the biggest things I work with clients on is we lose friendships. And we're like, I can't make friends anymore. You can, and you need to, because you can't depend 100% on your partner. So this is the time to really create that those friendship circles, find those things that you enjoy doing so that you are so happy being single that you will not lower your standards for someone that comes around because you're feeling needy, because you're feeling like you're not good enough. If you don't get to that place where you feel like you're looking for a partner that's going to add to your life, and instead you come from a place of, I'm lonely, I'm sad, nobody wants me, I'm not good enough, I'm too old, it's not possible for me, whatever those negative feelings that you're feeling right now, when we come into dating from that place, we attract people that are the takers. They're trying to take advantage of you. So we tend to attract more toxic people. And we also don't know when to let go because we're allowing a lot more because of our desperation of how bad we feel.
I feel all that you just said, all of it.
I get it.
Excuse me.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience. Definitely, if you go into my bio, there's free access. There's actually a 14-day free trial to my Thrive Hive. Like I said, you can grab my book and workbook at the very least. Start there. But we're very used to working through this and all those different big feelings that come up. You would be amazed. And when you're in it, it's so hard to believe how much better life can be. But being someone who left an abusive person 12 years ago and is now happily married to an amazing man after I believed that I might be single for the rest of my life and got okay with that, I can tell you on the other side that it's a beautiful place. But you have to allow yourself to feel the feelings and do the healing. Not saying 100% healing, because there's still stuff that gets worked on as you get into another relationship, but get to that core of who you are. Really rediscover who that person is without all the other crap, all that noise that's getting in the way.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm going to go see if I can get in touch with you and maybe do a few sessions with you. I think it would help me a lot.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I look forward to seeing you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, now. The guest is already, okay, cool. I'd never done that before. That was really cool. Thank you so much for reaching out. You know what? I can probably do, let's see, invite, let me see, let's see if there's anybody else. I can do one more, and then I am going to need to go and make dinner for my family. So let me know. Anybody else, any questions for me? Anything they want to ask about healing from toxic relationships? This is so common. It's not that there's something inherently wrong with you. Maybe there was something that you missed during childhood that you didn't learn. Maybe you are in that hyper people pleasing mode where you're constantly trying to make everybody else happy. You're trying to constantly, worry about everybody else except for yourself. It's time to really focus on you and focus on your healing. So this is the time. I don't care how long you've experienced toxicity. I don't care what has happened for you before, but your time is now to really start healing. All right, I'm going to try one more person, see if there's anybody else able to join. If not, again, anyone who's watching this, make sure you follow this account. Go ahead over to my bio, grab your copy of my book and workbook. We also do have the Thrive Hive community. So if you get my book and workbook, you'll actually be invited to that to try it out for 2 weeks and see how we can best support you. Doing this alone makes it really difficult. And for me, as someone who had a background in crisis counseling, my undergrad in psychology, I was the go-to for everybody to help them. And I was stuck. It wasn't until I started sharing and realized I was not the only one and got outside support to help me see the areas that I couldn't see because I was repeating those patterns over and over again. That's when I was able to heal. When I was able to say, I give up, I don't know what I'm doing, because obviously I keep ending up with these toxic people. So something I'm doing isn't right. That's when I was able to actually heal and create a whole different life for myself. So on that note, I don't see any other questions. Again, go over, make sure you like and follow this page, grab your stuff in the bio, your links in the bio. You can swipe right and you can grab all the good stuff that's there for you. Lots of ways to work and interact. And actually my husband, David, actually works with me, and he does something called Psych K, which is high speed mindset, meaning that those beliefs that you have about what's possible for you are all in the subconscious. If we can start healing those subconscious, the trauma, the experience that we've had, the beliefs that we have about what's possible, we can start healing and shifting those, then we can start healing at a much quicker rate. So definitely, and he actually works with our clients to make sure they help at that subconscious level so that we can then build from there to rebuild your life and create something different for you. So on that note, great hanging out with you. Come back and see me next Thursday. I will be going live again. Maybe I'll go live in between there. Who knows? This was fun to be able to invite somebody on. So thank you everybody for coming to hang out. Again, go ahead and follow me, this account, grab your free resources in the bio, and I will see you on the next training. Bye everybody. Have a great night.